known as the catalyst of light for abundance mastery, Gabrielle Spencer is here to help you clear your energy, shift you into your power, and dramatically raise your vibration. She is the creator of the widely popular Path to Prosperity program and the Heart Opening to Abundance series. Gabrielle Spencer, welcome.
I'm very excited and present, and I can't wait to hear all about you.
Well, cool. I'm wondering what we're talking about, so we'll see what comes.
Okay, cool. So
what are we talking about?
we're talking about the Rainbow Activation Code, which is a theme that keeps surfacing in my meditations and in my life, my work, and I wanted to research more about this from other experts and see how I can kind of put this all together and make sense of it. So a big part of it is about Kundalini awakening, activations in general, DNA upgrades, and what a DNA upgrade is, and what these different gifts and abilities are when they start to happen in us, some of the symptoms and all this stuff. So it's about kind of creating a platform where we can discuss these ideas and kind of make sense of them all and understand them in a way, or put tools together or things into a system that we can use to work with, so it doesn't feel like such an abstract concept.
That is, wow. That's a lot, but okay, we'll see what we can get to. That's, wow. We could talk for probably a whole weekend with all of that. So we'll just see if we can ask for like some simplicity as you're talking. I'm connecting to the other side, like, okay, well, we'll see what the other side chooses to send through, just see what comes out, because that's some deep and broad stuff, so, but it's all good. I mean, I love all of these topics, so it's great fun for me to talk about, because I've been doing it a long time, and sometimes you even forget things that you knew, and then it will come back because somebody asks you, and then you're like, oh yeah, then there's that, so it's really always interesting. It's never boring.
Yeah, I'd like to hear more about how you became awakened or activated, and how you use what you do in your daily life. Like, what is your work about, your body of work? How do you help people?
Okay. What was the first part of your question? All right. So what do I do, or how did I get started?
Let's do how you got started.
The short story is that my life fell apart. I think that's pretty much a common theme for everybody, and for myself, I started on my path in my 20s because I did everything you're supposed to do. I went to college, I got a job, I had a house, I had a Mustang convertible. I mean, I was cool. I lived in Florida.
Wow.
I had a great life, and everything that I had, really, and I had a long-term boyfriend, then fiance, and you're like, okay, I'm getting all the nuts and bolts in place, and I'm following along as you're supposed to do, and that's going to bring you happiness, and everything's going to be great. Except for that, it wasn't. And it's not that the signs weren't there and all that other crap, but it fell apart. Like, no matter how you're trying to plug the holes, boom, suddenly it's not pluggable anymore. Okay. And so that was my first big, holy cow, my whole life just fell to my feet. And okay, so because I'm a very logical person, in fact, recently, a summit speaker said to me, I've been listening to your interviews and I realize you're the practical spiritualist. And I said, oh my God, that is so going on my bio, because it's exactly right. Because I'm logical and mental, but in my journey had to make that balanced, where you get to use your mind, but it's not controlling the situation. And that was my big lesson. And I had to go through several of these experiences, unfortunately, where, you know, my mind and logic were always lining things up. And if I do this, then this will happen, and all of that. And I've created a good life for myself many times. And then just to have it fall apart. And you're like, really? And that's where your mind goes, what am I missing here? And finally, I was pushed to go within and be like, okay, there's obviously something missing. And that's when I began my search, was, okay, what is it, right? And so for all of us, we get to that place just in a different way. How, you know, what's missing and where do I find it and who is going to tell me how to get it? And so I started my journey and, you know, finally was willing to allow energy healing, which at the time was Reiki. And I got to release a lot of stuff. And that was my beginning. And, you know, we all have our paths. So I became a Reiki master, and I went on tons of spiritual journeys. I met my husband on a spiritual journey to Tibet. Wow. And so, yeah, awesome and great fun. I would never go back there, but anyway. So, I mean, I had a great time, but even for him and I, even though both of us are spiritual and we follow our own paths, we still ran into the same issue. And when I was 37, that's when the whole housing market went down. And at the time I was in mortgage banking. And so, you know, I had $1 million house, and we had the life in Scottsdale, Arizona. It was fabulous. I always tell people my favorite memory is actually being picked up by limos to take you to your vacation. I mean, to me, that's like the ultimate, right? You're like, yeah, I live in $1 million plus home. That's awesome. But it's just like the little perks of life. That's actually was cooler. You know, I had a nanny, and I mean, life was good. Yeah. I worked a lot, but it was great. And we had created a great life. And so when the housing thing happened, everything again I had worked so hard for was taken away and just fell apart. And you're like, again, really? There's a theme here, people. And I teach my clients that that's what you're looking for. What's the theme? Okay. And so for me, it was realizing that I had to balance the mind, because it's not about being in control. And most of my clients who come to me are the ones who struggle with letting go of control. Like, we're trying always to handle all the pieces, and it keeps you in resistance like this. Like, you're just so exhausted from trying to see, what am I supposed to do? And how am I going to do it? And you know what I'm saying? Who should I call? And what am I, you know, you're just doing all the time. One of my favorite stories is when I first had a mentor who was helping me to heal, doing the Reiki energy. I used to drive her crazy because she was not a logical person. She was more feeling, and we did not understand each other. Okay. And she would say to me, you have to just, you don't try. And I'd look at her like, you're a three-headed monster. I don't hear that. I don't understand. And she's like, and she's going, but I don't understand what you don't understand, right? So we're both like, okay, but that's the thing. Like, you have to find the right person. It's not that she didn't help me heal, but it was so frustrating for me, so frustrating for her, because I kept saying, just tell me what to do and I will do it. Okay. So my big thing now, because I had that experience, is to be able to explain to people what it is that they are to do to help them get where they need to go. Because I know how frustrating that is. And there is an answer. There are things you can do. And then you're asking me, okay, about DNA activation and how do you get there? Well, it would be lovely if all we could do is boop, boop, boop. Yep, activated. But it doesn't work like that. I mean, it works. I see it, and I've explained it to people in various ways. But one of the ways is like this. Let's say you have a video game. Okay, and I'm thinking of Donkey Kong, and that may be really old for some people, but any video game will do, whatever one anybody knows. And we all know that in a video game, you start out at level 1, right? And it works the same way when you incarnate. Boom, you're at level 1. It doesn't matter if you're a soul that's a billion years and you've had a gazillion lifetimes, you still get to come back and, oh, hello, you're at level 1. So level 1 you are body, mind, and spirit. And as a Kundalini yoga person, you will understand we all start with the basic programming of that. Mm-hmm. So what happens is part of that video game course is to be able to bring those body, mind, and spirit, that triangle, that base programming, and you're going to uplift it. And everybody knows the story of how you take the triangle and you invert it. As above, so below. So when you invert it, it becomes higher mind, spirit, and the high heart. Okay, so the cosmic heart, which behind me is the cosmic heart mandala, which I always do all my videos so that it's beaming out to everybody all this good energy. So that's the inverted triangle, body, mind, spirit. So you have to upgrade that base to that higher. But in order to do it, you have to advance each level. And so everybody knows in a video game, you know, what is it? I don't know, 1,000 points, let's say. You have to rack up 1,000 points and do all these various things and do quests and what have you in order to get your points. Well, it's the same way in life, okay? You have to release enough stuff that you have accumulated over your many lifetimes. So it's a game of releasing. And when you do release it, you heal those layers, right? And then you raise your frequency. Let's say, and I'm not going to tell you it's 1,000 points, but let's say, you know, you have to raise your frequency to 100 just to get to the next level. So then we can bring in some other terms we know, like the scale of consciousness by Dr. David Hawkins. And I actually use it in my teaching because people know it's easy to refer to. So the first 200 points, the frequency 0 to 200, those are all fear-based, survival-based programming, meaning it's the lowest. You came in with body, mind, and spirit. It's the lowest base frequency. So are that 0 to 200 is your base. Everybody comes in, your fears, your survival programming. So sadness, grief, guilt, fear, anger, hurt, hate, blah, blah, blah. Those are all in that 0 to 200 base programming. So you have to heal all of the old stuff because, and this is just what I have found in my practice, everybody else has their own experience, but rarely does anything happen in your current life that the root of the issue is in the current life. Generally, it's happened to you many other times in many different ways throughout your lifetimes, and it's happening to you here. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, it does, but it's a reminder to get you to tap in and say, like for me, so what was that theme that keeps running across? And for me, it was about letting go of control of the mind and being in that higher triangle. So it took me time to get there and to even figure out that was like my big hello, where I'm sure everybody who knew me probably could have said, hey, you know what? You might want to get out of your mind, right? But then the question, how do you do that? And this is what we're talking about, is healing those lower vibrations and raising yourself up to that 200 level, which is just, it's courage. And I perceive it as courage to step into who you really are. And so you're doing that work. And as you're doing it, many things are happening. As you're releasing and healing, you're automatically, as part of the work that we do and that I do for people, is connecting you in a multidimensional way to all that has occurred for your soul, okay? Because it's not about you and me as the people that we are. It's about what our soul is up to, really, and what we're supposed to be doing here to regain our mastery in every area. And that's where the abundance comes in. Because I tell people, you can't have a one-legged stool. You can't have a one-wheeled car. I mean, think about it. You have to have the whole set. in order to be complete. Okay. You can't just work on one thing. But as you're working on that body, mind, spirit, you're actually releasing and raising yourself up. And when your frequency is at a certain level, that's your key to open the door to the next level. And so your frequency is the key every time. And as you level up, part of leveling up when you work with an advanced healer is to provide you the activations and the DNA sequencing and resequencing and activation, because as we know just from science, there's more than 2 strands of DNA in every person. They just think it's junk. And those of us who know better go, really? That's a great explanation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, you don't need all your organs either. They're just there for, you know, that appendix. It's a throwaway. Who knows what it's for? So anyway, it is funny, but the point of all of this is that in order to reach, and you mentioned the rainbow DNA and activating your rainbow DNA. And for me, that, and I'm hearing, is a 5th dimensional DNA that you're talking about. And so for you, that is like your next level, and would be where we're moving the masses versus where they are right now. And for those who, you know, can level up and keep leveling, there's more. But that's the explanation that I hear. So that means that on a mass consciousness level, that's what we're all working for, to get as many people to that the rainbow DNA activation level. So that means we've got some work to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, really well said. Thank you.
Yeah. It's funny, I always tell people, I don't remember exactly everything that I say, because I swear to God, it just comes right out. It's crazy.
I'm glad we're recording it, so we can replay it.
Very smart. I saw that I was going though, because you just never know, right? And that's many times I end up talking to people and they're like, God, I wish we recorded that. I'm like, yeah, me too. Because I can't write it down now. I don't remember. But anyway, it's all good.
Can you talk about what or kind of explain what multidimensional energy is to someone who may be not very familiar with that?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. So when we talk about multidimensional energy, it really has to do with, there's many, many, many dimensions everywhere. And there's the in-between, I call it. There's in-between dimensions. There's lower dimensions, higher dimensions. You know, we talk about juxtaposition. I mean, there's dimensionality everywhere. And when you incarnate, you and I are sharing the same dimension. But you can get out of alignment with your own dimension. Okay. One of my favorite analogies here is Groundhog Day, the movie with Bill Murray. Do you know it?
Yeah.
Okay. It's one of my favorites, because while he was experiencing the dimension in a certain way, everybody else was experiencing that same dimension in another way. Okay. And this is dimensionality. There are times when you may feel like you're out of sync with everybody else. Like you're standing there, you and I are seeing each other, but somehow you just know it's off, okay? And so the dimensional thing happens to us often. I know that for many people, they will, as we're talking about it, realize, oh yeah, that happened, but they didn't think it was anything. But actually it is. And there are times when you actually have to do a meditation or something in order to get yourself sort of clicked back in, and then you kind of feel like, okay, now everything's normal, right? So if you actually think about it, you can understand that we actually are switching back and forth to the ones that are closest to us. Okay, so it's not like it has to be, you know, we get in a spaceship and go somewhere. It's right here. And as our soul incarnates, I tell people that it takes like one drop of your soul. Like I always see it like a raindrop to power a body. It does not take a huge amount of your soul. And so your soul can be incarnated in more than one place. I mean, when I've worked on people, sometimes you end up clearing things, like I said, for your soul, which means you're really clearing it for other aspects of your soul, okay, that are experiencing existences in other places at other times, okay? So it gets a little complicated.
Lifetimes?
Sorry?
Like in past lives or future lives? Is that what you mean?
All at the same time, everything happens. There's really no past, present, or future. It's just the way that we perceive it. So it gets a little complicated, but it's really not that complicated. If you just think of it like you are an aspect of your soul and you are responsible for helping your soul to evolve, and that is what you're here for. And so what's most important to know is that there are many things going on all at the same time. So if you have one of those days where it feels like, really? It's because something must be going on somewhere crazy. But in all truthfulness, we don't generally dwell on it because it's not really that important. What's more important is that within yourself, you bring all the pieces together. I used to say that my practice was chaos management based because people would come to me when everything was falling apart and we would work on just the pieces that were needed to fix that. But they weren't really able to hold that new vibration needed because all those other wheels were missing. We didn't fix those. Okay.
Yeah.
I know, right? And so this is the important thing about what we're doing here and how we can help all our whole soul, whatever that looks like, because we don't really actually know. Like I'm giving glimpses of things and I get understandings and I have my views about it. But one thing that I've learned as a constant is that nothing is constant. I've learned that as soon as I think I understand something from the other side, they up level it and they show me something else and I'm like, holy cow, I never would have thought, wow, and I get blown away. So the thing I've learned is, you know, this is my understanding today, and tomorrow they may share something with me that, you know, I just am, you know, floored, and then you go, wow, that's pretty amazing. And, you know, it's not like you can share it with everybody because they'd be like, I don't know, you might be needing some psychiatric help, but it's all good. You just go, whatever. So what happens is now for myself, the way I help people is by working on that heart, spirit, mind in that order. And this was channeled to me because interestingly, when everybody runs around talking about how they want to release the blocks for abundance, they want to release a box about money, they want to change their mindset. Those are all fabulous things, but it's in the wrong order. We're focusing on it in the wrong order because your mind, the way the programming works in this dimension, and we are only talking about this dimension, the way it works is that your mind takes care of the survival of you. That's its job. That's its programming. Now, remember I said 0 to 200 is survival-based programming, right? So your mind is automatically activated to make sure you survive. So when we talk about changing that programming without putting anything in place to take its place and put it in its proper place, it is programmed to never give up that control. It won't do it. It will fight you, fight you, fight you. And that's why people get so, well, you just give up because you're like, I've tried everything and nothing's working, or I got it to work one time or whatever. That's why, because it's in control. And really, what king has ever given up its control ever, right? Without a super duper fight. So the way to do it is sort of, not trickery. It's the way it's meant to be as we evolve and now have the understanding. So when we heal our heart, okay, I also tell people, so for every lifetime you've ever had, think of it like a piece of paper. You just keep stacking that paper one on top of the other, right? So your heart is made up of a gazillion sheets of paper for every layer, for every lifetime. So let's say when people tell me my heart was broken, it's true. In that lifetime, it was broken. It was torn. It was shredded. It was, hole in the heart. I mean, we all have used these euphemisms saying, I have a broken heart, right?
Yeah.
The problem is that layer, it was torn. It was broken. That's how it got filed, okay? And so your next lifetime is going to have little ripples already just because it's on top of the other, right? It's like that princess in the pea bed issue, right? You can feel it that many layers ahead, okay? So
all the time. So cool.
Yeah, I mean, so you're going to always, and this is the thing, like you can't cover it up. It's still in there, okay? And deep, and it just goes deeper and deeper, right? So this is the issue, is healing every one of those layers that is causing that lump or that tear or whatever it is that you're broken up about. So, for instance, people will pick a spouse or a boyfriend, girlfriend over and over, the same kind, even though he was different, he looked different, he did different things, he had a different job, he da-da-da-da. I hear it all the time. It's like, I know the list is all this, but yet he turned out to be the same. And you're like, yes, because there's an issue with that. There's somewhere a root of an issue here that's deeper than my favorite, which is, I'm never going to do that again. And you're like, yes, that too then goes in there and gets filed. And of course, that's not going to work. Then you're just drawing it to you, because that's how that law of attraction works. Whatever you're never going to do again, guess what? You are just inviting more, more, more. So we begin with the heart and healing all of those layers so that you become whole. And then we're able to activate the high heart. See? And that's where that higher activation happens, and people move from that base programming of the heart to where it's really closed. The truth is, it's not very open. Even though we are loving and can be loving, it's not holding the amount of light that it has the capacity to hold. Because when I see the high heart, I see it like a projector where it just beams light out all around you to everybody who comes in contact with you. They just, it actually can make some people uncomfortable because they don't know what it is about you exactly, or they just, it's a little bit too much. And, it's really fascinating. But anyway, that's the high heart. It's like, it's a projector, and it's sending out that golden white light, and it touches everything you come in contact with. And so it works the same then with the spirit, and you are then healing the spirit, because in there too, your heart, the emotional body, it all gets worked on the same. And then the spirit with your inner child, it works together. And then you have the mind, and you have to do the subconscious and then the conscious, every layer, and then the higher mind, because your higher mind also stores things, because most of us have been pretty accomplished in our other existences and have been masters many times over and have amazing abilities and gifts. And you asked me about that earlier. And, like for myself, I came in knowing that I was psychic. And when I was young, I totally had like visions. And then the next day, exactly what I had seen or heard was exactly played out again. But what was interesting is that I didn't grow up in a family where that was talked about, actually. And, you have your own sense to know that that's just weird. My big thing, and in my bio, I say it, I mean, my whole thing, my whole life had been, I just want to be normal. I just want to come in, be normal, do my thing, and that's it. I don't want to be in the public eye. I don't want to be out there. I don't want anybody to see me. I just, want to stay doing my thing. And that was my big resistance to actually following my path, even later. And that was really another aspect of my lesson, was that it was time. It's like, your time is here and you have to move on with this. And even then, I mean, that's the biggest joke. The joke is on me, because I was like, fine, I'll do like a little bit. And that was my answer for the longest time. It's like, okay. And I always tell people, I always did just enough to stay just inside the line of, okay, you're doing it. And so technically you're in compliance, but you're not like doing anything extra. And I tell people, so it's been now a while, but I can't remember now. I believe it was like the beginning of 2016. I knew there was a message for me, and I was like, okay. So I called this very trusted person that I know, and I said, all right, I know there's a message. Go ahead and give it to me. And she's like, okay. And so we did our session, and the message was, you have a year to like go out in public and actually offer your gifts to the public. And I was like, wow. No, oh my God. But I'd been through enough in my life to know that I was not willing to take the consequences of not doing it. Right. I just don't need that spiritual 2x4 again. Like, I get it. So when people tell me, they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, oh, please don't go there. Trust me. I've tried that. I've tried staying just in the line, just doing what I need to do. And I can assure you that is not the correct choice. So the story is, I knew that, and I did the work that I needed to do to get over it, to be like, okay, I can do it, but not in a, like, I'm trying, like, that isn't even a word in my vocabulary anymore, which is so amazing, because, wouldn't my mentor be thrilled 20 years later to know that I'm not plaguing anybody with, well, how do I do that? And I don't know, I'm trying. And so that's not there anymore. And that's what happens too, is you up level, you forget that you ever were a certain way. It is so crazy. It like just goes away. It's like, wasn't even you anymore. And it's amazing too. Like, I work with mostly women. I've had men clients, but mostly women. And, I tell a lot of people, because I've had women come to me and they're like, I think I just need a divorce. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Well, we'll just have to see. But meanwhile, we're going to work on you. And then I'm going to teach you how to invite your whole family into your healing so that they too can benefit. And it's amazing how it changes the dynamics for everybody, and how it's amazing. I mean, but this is the power of energy work and multidimensional healing, as you asked, because you're not dealing with you and me, and I'm telling you, you have to change and you have to do this and you have to do that. You take it to a whole different level. You're not even dealing with the humanness part. Like, that's where the resistance happens. That's where the, you did this to me and I did that to you because of that, that whole blame thing, that all that lower 200 frequency, you are above that and dealing with the higher selves and the higher energetics, so that the higher vibrational lesson is provided. Because the truth is that I could, like I told you, my lesson was blah, blah, blah. And then there's another lesson in there and all that. But the truth is, I'm sure there's a way bigger lesson, but it's not important for me to know it and understand it in the third dimension, because this is, quite frankly, a very low lesson. And this is a very low dimension, sorry. And so the lesson that I'm needing to learn and how I got myself here in this third dimension, in a place where I have to reclaim my mastery, tells you that I did something somewhere. And I call those our separation events. And so we're really here to heal those separation events. What got you here? That's the question. And it's never just one thing either, everyone. Okay. We've done many things. You know, I tell people in my healing for my own self, you know, I've done the witch route. I've done the dark side. I've done the healer side. I've done the oracle side. I've done the court of Ra side. I mean, I have been high priestess and, you know, okay, I've done it, which is why I didn't want to do it again. And, you know, I had said many times, even before I even understood what I know now, I just don't want to do that again. I don't want to be a healer again. I don't want blah, 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 because, you know,
yeah,
it's not always a thankful job, right? It's like, how many times can you be burned at a stake? And how many times can you have your eyes poked out and, you know, your ears cut off? I mean, come on, right? And so even though way back when I didn't really understand where that was coming from, it was still there because, you know, some aspect of yourself had experienced it. So for all of us, it is about healing those higher vibrational lessons. And we get to those by dealing with what we're being shown here. Okay. And so that's how you dig them out. Does that make sense?
Yes. You're a fabulous teacher. You explain things so well with really cool visuals and you make it
is that Italian in me? Is that the hands are the Italian in me, right? But I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, I think it is just a mosaic that is amazing and is filled with so many pieces. And it's not important to know what pieces. This is what I've learned, is that you don't have to know. Relieve yourself of needing to know, because actually our understanding doesn't even scratch the surface, like I said. And every time, you know, I've had clients where, you know, many times part of healing is that conscious part where you get to just vomit it out, right? Just get it out, say what you need to say, and it's okay. Because frankly, sometimes you just need to say it, right? You just get it out. It's all right. No judgment in healing. I tell everybody, in healing, there is no such thing as judgment, because it's all really just about the healing, right? And we don't get attached to what was said or done or whatever. It's probably millennia ago anyway. So what's the difference? Let's just get rid of it. That's kind of my view. So I think every time we talk about it and we think to ourselves, okay, so we're going to go over and when I go to the other side, and that's what I call it, when I go to the other side, I'm going to connect with your higher self and I'm going to ask, and we're going to see what you need to do to fix this issue, whatever. And every time, bar none, the higher self has us working on this over here and that over there and this over here and da, 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 and it seems like we're not even getting to what they wanted to work on, right? But what's amazed me each and every time is the higher self will bring it full circle to where then you're able to work on that issue, because there are probably other things that are covering over it, that are tentacles of it, and you can't get to it until you handle these other aspects too. And that's what people don't understand about healing, is that I always think of it like this. You know, when you cut through a mountain, right? Cut a mountain or an iceberg and you see all the layers, right? You have different color layers, you have thickness and thin ones, and then you have them, they're smashed together, right? And they overlap each other because they, you know, the mountain got crushed. So that's kind of the layers of your healing, like we talked about, the heart layer, the spirit layer, all that. They're the same thing. They get smashed. They're thicker ones, thinner ones, you know, whatever. Like you might have had a gardener life where it was just perfect. You did nothing. You just existed, and you probably didn't end up with a whole lot there. So that would be a thin layer, right? So the point is that we don't know the best way to heal with our minds and even with our hearts, but our higher self and our soul know. And that's all that matters, is that we are just giving permission on a conscious level, on a higher higher self level for the healing. And whenever I start my healings with people, I always have them give that permission, because there's much resistance many times, even energetically. It's amazing. So I always give your mind something to do to help raise the vibration and to keep it busy, frankly, because it's your mind that's like the biggest resistor, like I said. So when we bring the heart in alignment, the spirit in alignment, then we begin working on the mind, because then we can create that inverted triangle, bring them all together, and then raise that lower into the higher. And so that is when your mind, like for myself, I can still think and operate pretty much like I did before, except it's not. Instead, from within myself, I know what to do. It's the strangest thing. One of my favorite examples is last year, my husband and I was talking about, okay, it's time to buy my husband a new car. And so I said to him, so I've been looking at the kind of car that you want, and, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, I think we should wait till July. And at the time it was like 4 months away. And I said, fine, whatever. And the very next day, so we agreed. So everybody knows we agreed we'd wait 4 months. Okay. And so the next day I'm in my office and I just get this call the bank. And I'm like, okay, fine. I call the bank. And I'm thinking in my mind that I'm just going to call to find out what the interest rates are, right? That's nothing. That's no big deal. So I do. And before I know it, the woman has us pre-qualified. And my husband's like, I thought we were just going to wait. I said, yeah, she's just going to pre-qual so we know what our rate is, whatever. And he's like, okay, fine, whatever. And so we do this. And then she goes, okay, I'm sending you a check. I'm like, but I thought I was just getting pre-qualified. I'm like completely confused. And she goes, oh, well, we send out the check. And if you don't buy a car in the next 90 days, it's nothing. And I said, fine, whatever. Well, because I had called the credit union, they are hooked up to, preferred car dealerships. So next thing I know, I get a phone call. Now, here's the funny part. I never pick up my phone unless it tells me who it is. Like, I don't pick up random, whatever. And it was just like, answer the phone. I'm like, okay. So I answered the phone. And so it's this car dealership. And I said, okay, well, this is what I'm looking for. And he goes, oh my God, that's a really popular car. And, I was just looking for one like that the other day, and there's none to be had. And I'm like, we're not in a rush, 4 months, right? And he goes, yeah. Okay, well, I'll keep your name. I'm like, have at it, man, whatever. And then he calls me like a few days later. He goes, you won't believe this. Now, that is my favorite phrase. All my clients, when they tell me that, I'm like, oh, yes, I will believe it.
Yeah, totally.
So he goes, we're taking in a car just like you want this weekend on a trade-in. And I'm like, really? He goes, yeah. And I said, I said, well, tell me what it is. And I was asking him very specific questions. And so he went and he found me, he actually found like the original sticker. Anyway, so the long story short of this whole thing is, crazy story. We end up buying this car 4 months early. And the dealership that took it in was not a Lincoln dealership. It was a Cadillac dealership. So they did not even check to see what kind of car they took in on trade. And the person who traded it in didn't actually care what they gave him as trade-in. So they gave him the trade-in for a base model of this car. Okay, this is hilarious because it was a black label premium. It had everything in it, like everything. And they sold it to us at the price of a base car. And so I walked out the door, 10 grand less.
Wow.
I mean, it was like, really? Is that crazy? But I listened, and that's the point. Like, in our minds, financially, it would be better for us to wait 4 more months, okay? But it's being fluid enough to go with the little pushes or the information that comes or the person that comes to you or the opportunity that comes, and that you take it. You don't stick rigidly to, well, we said 4 months, right?
Yes. I think
So,
that is what slows everyone down and keeps everyone stuck, unhappy. Being that
well,
rigid.
it's being out of sync with the flow of the universe, because
Yeah.
the universe doesn't have time, okay? And we are completely time-based. We don't, we even measure distance in time. I don't know if you realize that, but when I was over in Europe many, many years ago, it was pointed out to me that us Americans especially, we measure distance and time. And I was like, oh, wow, you're right. It's going to take you 20 minutes to get there. It's not 10 miles away. It's 20 minutes, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yes. So it's amazing, right? You're like, oh, wow, yeah. Anyway, so we have an issue when we are expecting the universe to respond to us, because we are time oriented. I need it by the end of the month. I need it by whatever it is. And so we have a hard time letting go of that. And that in and of itself is a resistance. And so you're pushing, but you're not in the flow of the universe. I mean, when you're pushing or pulling or stopping or whatever it is you're trying to do, that's the resistance right there. And so you're already starting the journey in a place of lack. So this is the part where it's more important to be in the flow of things. Now, you had talked to me earlier about the activations and the DNA and all of that. And what's really interesting, you had asked me, how does it feel? Well, it feels different every time, and it will never feel the same twice. And the reason is because different things are happening and you're at different levels when it's happening to you, and, various things. Like when you get the flu, yes, it has general symptoms, but it's never the same, right? It might last 7 days, it might be 5 days, might be 2 weeks or a month. I mean, who knows? So it's the same sort of thing. Like very recently, I got an upgrade, and I was wiped out for about 4 days, like totally out of alignment. If I were to, I knew it though. That's the thing. Many times people don't realize it, and you just get more in sync. But there was nothing that I could do. I knew that I was just going to have to allow it its time, to work its way through and for me to do whatever. And it wasn't until it was over that I got the understanding of actually what had happened. And I still won't pretend and tell you I totally get it, but I understand basically what was happening or what happened. But it was an upgrade for me and on a higher vibrational level to my ability to help people to heal. And while that's great, I was still out of sync for 4 days. And that means for me, and probably for everybody else, when you're out of sync, things don't work. Okay? Nothing you're trying to do is going to move, and everything is like upside down. It's like upside down day. Dr. Seuss, I think, has upside down day. So it's like that, but it can last for like a couple days or longer. And there are things you can do sometimes to help, integrate it. I call it activate, integrate, and stabilize, because that's what happens when you get activations. Yeah, you have to do, that's the self-care part of, you have to get that happening in that sequence, and then you move through it faster. But if you try to fight it, that's again just going to cause you more problems. So at least I knew enough not to fight it and just allow it and just be like, okay, well, I hope I snap out of this soon, because I have a live summit to do. So yeah. Hope you guys hurry up and finish up whatever you're doing, because I need to be like a functioning person. But you get what I'm saying. I mean, it's different, but it can also be very uplifting. It can be like you're just flying high. It's sometimes exhausting, and sometimes you don't really feel anything, but it doesn't mean something didn't happen. It just meant that you were able to integrate it and stabilize it with ease. I know for my husband and I, it's really funny when there is one group that we do together that hires spiritual stuff. And whenever there's an activation, he does not integrate it well. He fights it. And you're like, why? And he's like, it's just my process. Okay, that's how you want to do it. Fine. And so, I mean, it's not generally, I mean, that's just not my way. So, but everybody has their thing, and it's more important for each person to understand what their process is than it is for me to tell you it's the wrong way, right? But of course, it's because I live with him that I have a little more leeway there in that, you know, I could help you do that so much easier. And he's like, I have my process. Okay, keep your process. It's working for you. So did you have any more questions, or did I get you full circle?
You totally full circled. Thank you. That was beautiful. I love the way you teach and talk.
Thank you.
Explain things. Oh, I got to
it's awesome stuff, right? But that's that practical side. Like I want people to understand, because I think it makes you less resistant and more willing to know that. For me, it was knowing that I didn't have to give up who I am and who I identify myself as. And then I can let everybody else know it's okay. Trust me, I actually accomplish way more with my mind, not putting that stress where you always have to be on it. Does that make sense? I mean, just like I tell people, well, when I first started out on the summit circuit, I mean, I would script everything. I did not want to be unprepared. And so that's still part of my personality. But from the very first one, it was so funny. It never goes that way because I'm being given the information anyway. And I already know it from my gazillions of years of experience. And the more that I up level myself, I'm just tapping into that, you know, the universal libraries and all of that. And that's, I mean, and the higher vibrational beings that you work with. I mean, there's so much information. And for mind people, that's really cool. We like information. So
definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
I love it.
So all of the activations, they just make you lighter and brighter. And as you get that, you also then reclaim your gifts. I think that's one area we didn't talk about. So as you up level, just like in the video game, as we talked about, you know how in a video game, you're given more powers, like greater strength, greater resilience. You can't die as easily, you know, or you reincarnate just like that. You know, if you're playing something with magic, you get higher grade magic and all of those really cool things. And it works the same, exactly the same. As you up level, like I said, when I first incarnated, I knew that I was psychic, but I didn't use it. And it definitely got closed off. I was probably about 7 or 8 years old when my last memory. And so it wasn't until later that I realized, when I heard other channelers, I'm like, I should be able to do that. And I just knew that, but I didn't know how to do it. And so what happened for me was, again, I was having healing done, and I was continuing on my journey, and I really got into theta healing, actually. And that was because of the DNA part, which is what you're really interested in. And so the theta healing, that was her premise originally, was that it's about the DNA. And I agree, and that had really interested me at the time. And so in going through that certification, it did flip something for me. And definitely I just went my own way after that, because I opened up enough within me that the psychic ability just turned back on like that, and my ability to move energy just I mean, I opened up, but I had done so much work up to that point that I think at that point I've been doing spiritual stuff and healing and all that for about 10 years. And so it finally like was the culmination where that the DNA finally clicked in. And, you know, what we all say now, all of us who have been in this for a while, is, you know, where we were 20 years ago is not where we are anymore. And so you don't have to take that long road anymore, because everybody gets to start kind of where we are and then go further. So we can help move you through this process of releasing all that stuff that took me 10 years. We can do it in a really short amount of time, because I always think of it like a bulldozer, just going in and taking out chunks, psh, out, gone, and returning it. And so it's huge difference now. And so as you get rid of all that debris and you heal those layers, you're then at a frequency to unlock your own gifts. And frankly, you're given back your powers is kind of how I see it. Like they were taken away for a reason, or you shut them off for a reason. I mean, that happens a lot. People turn off their own stuff because it got them in trouble. It had really bad consequences, you know? And for me, I can understand why I turned off my psychic ability. You know, like I said, that did not pay off for me in another lifetime. So, you know, after a while you go, you know, I'm not doing that again, you know? And we've all done it. So there are many ways that things get closed. But as you raise your frequency, they open, and then you actually get to a place where you are able to access things that you may never have had access to before. And it's just based on what's available now because of the energetics that we're in. And so I kind of see it as the higher your vibration goes, it's sort of like being drafted for jobs that were not necessarily in your plan, because you go from a fixed destiny when you're at that lower 200. You come in, you have a fixed destiny when you're at that lower 200. But as you raise your frequency, you get to the place of the divine destiny, which is open, which is many, many, many opportunities. I always tell people, I see it like a nighttime highway. Imagine yourself in an airplane and you look down and you see all those lights of those cars zooming along these different paths, right? So when I look out, that's what I see. Like I have all these options and all these things that are available to me. And it's amazing. And when you're at that lower 200 frequency, unfortunately, you always have the rock and the hard place. Those are your two options. Notice most of the time you say, well, I could do this or I could do that. There isn't generally even a third. You might be able to force one, but it's not often, right? And people will later tell me, oh, I should never have done such and such. And I'm like, really? Because you were obviously choosing the worst choice at the time? No, it's that this choice sucked and this one did too. Okay, they were neither good. You took the least bad because that's where your vibration is. You only get rock or hard place. I mean, really, right? Where do you think that saying came from? So as you raise your frequency, that's the great gift, is that you then are not limited to that predestined life. You are opening up your opportunities, and you know yourself that you are raising your vibration when it's no longer rock and hard place. It's totally different. I mean, there's no other way to describe it except for that you get finally 5 or 6 choices. Or in fact, there are some days you get so many choices that our biggest problem then is, okay, what is the best choice? And that's an interesting problem to have, right? Isn't that what we all want? Isn't that abundance? Wow, I could do this. Do I want to go down that direction? Or do I want to do that? And that's, believe it or not, is a problem too. But that's, you know, the point is that you have those choices. I know. I'm just thinking to myself, yes, I've had clients, they're like, oh my God, I'm drowning in choices. And it's so amazing to think that that would be odd, right? But it doesn't happen for most people. So that's where we're all going.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Gabrielle.
Me too. You're welcome. Wasn't this fun?
Yes, you're amazing. I wanted to give you an opportunity to share a little about the free gift offer you have, so I can send people back your way.
Awesome. I know that I think we have Unlock and Unleash Your Abundance.
Yes, we do.
And this one is about unlocking and unleashing your abundance. It's working with the heart, spirit, and the mind. So there's clearing in there for all three, and then bringing you into alignment to help you, so that if there are, sometimes for people, it's, you just need that, like I had said, that last to push you over. And it helps regardless to remove, from all three of those areas stuff. And what I tell people is this: every one of my audios is made so that it helps you in the moment that you're listening, because it's working with your higher self. And it is not only going to work on just one thing, because when I'm over on the other side, I have never known a higher self or soul not to take full advantage. So if you are willing and listening to the audio and doing the part where I go into the meditative side, I invite you to add your own intention when the music plays. And when I'm on the other side, I add there that you receive the healing for whatever it is you're wanting, or the activation for whatever it is. That way, it continually helps you. And that's the point, is that there's not any one quick fix, but everybody who does the audios over and over, amazing things start to happen for them, because it's real. It's just real. It's not like, you know what I'm saying? It's awesome stuff. So that is an excellent base to get started for people to heal those three layers, to get those three areas, so that they can start getting pulled together in that higher vibrational way and start working their way, through it, because we all want abundance in every area.
Yes.
So, did I give you a website, or do I need to tell them?
Yeah, I will. You can.
You're going to post it?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's it. I mean, it's an easy one. I don't remember. It might be 12 or 15 minutes or something. But it's not because this work doesn't take a long time. It's just allowing that healing part. I even have people, after they listen initially, they'll just forward to the healing part and just listen to that part over and over. I tell people, go to bed with it. Just let it play over and over.
That's great.
I'm all about cheating and using time to the best, right? I'm a mom. I mean, I'm busy. I'm busy. So all I can tell you is, wherever it means, and in fact, many times if you do these things while you sleep, you get more result. And it's because that mind of yours is not interfering.
I love that.
Me too.
Multitasking.
Hey man,
Do it.
sleep and heal at the same time. And then boom. And that's when people go, holy cow, this is happening, that's happening. A lot of times they don't even think it's because of the work they're doing. They just think it's out of the blue. And it's like, oh, no. It's because you are getting rid of that stuff that's holding you back. And I will be honest, I mean, it's never what you think it is, ever. It's always something deeper. And that's the part that we waste a lot of time on, is that mental part of, it must be this. Well, I'm going to try that. You know what I mean? It's just stop one thing and just do it and allow it to do its thing, So it's awesome. So everybody go out and get it, because that's just the beginning, but it's awesome and you have to get started, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And then I want to hear back from everybody how they're doing, because that's the fun part for all of us, is when we know that it's helping you, right? That's what we're here for.